Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So this is a video about Prince Harry. I would like to ignore him, but I just can't. The man who wants to be a recluse just won't get out of my face. So it's odd for a guy who craves privacy that I see him every time I switch on the television. He's suffering from a therapeutic overdose, and who got him into that? As he said, Meghan got him into that, his wife, although some people say that's even another provable lie, that he was having therapy some years before he met her. Anyway, so he's in a tenebrous mood. You would have thought that he's found freedom, living his multi-million-dollar hacienda in Montecito, he would finally have something to sing about. You know, they got this, is it six-figure, sorry, what am I talking? Is it nine-figure contract for a new Netflix deal? And the guy can't crack a smile. What's gone wrong? You know, living in such opulence in the Sunshine State, but yet he's very downbeat. Why so maudlin? His tale is one of unexampled pathos, so Harry would have us believe. So he's in California and he's gone native. So Californians, they're notorious for being kind of into themselves and psychobabble and so on. I'm not suggesting everyone from California is like that, but the trouble is it's made him tristful. It clearly hasn't done the trick. I mean, maybe it's done it for the therapist who's laughing all the way to the bank. I particularly want to take issue with the way that he's lacerating his family. And he's saying that he indulged in narcotics and alcohol abuse in his youth to self-medicate for childhood sorrow and angst. There may be an element of truth in that, or maybe he was just a junkie. Maybe he just was a drunkard. Okay, fine, each to their own, pick your poison. I'm not moralistic about these things. I don't mind it. People do take these substances. I know the drug abuse was illegal, obviously, and thereby he was funding brigands, terrorists, and so on by buying these drugs. So it's possibly rather self-serving, that excuse. I know the modern approach to helping people beat addictions is to say it's not your fault, it's a disease. Take the pressure off them, make it easier for them to manage their problem and then possibly kick the habit. So far as I know, he's never been to rehab. So is he cleaned out now? I don't know. But to be fair to him, he did have a troubled childhood. You know, he suffered the death of his mother when he was 12 years old. Long before that, the familial situation was not a healthy one. His parents' divorce was going very badly wrong from when he was about 5, and difficult to cope with the best of times. But then it's out in the press. Now, admittedly, he was at boarding school from the age of 8 at a school called Ludgrove, and I knew some people who were there with him. Though I've actually never met him. Obviously, I knew some people who were eating with him. Anyway, so he was a little bit away from that, and his parents had several houses. So loads of people's parents divorced, though, but obviously so much more difficult if it's in the public eye. The most public divorce of all time, and how messy was that? It being splashed across the front page, these shrieking headlines about his parents' adultery. But then he talked about breaking the cycle of pain. So why are you doing the same? You know, washing all the laundry, dirty laundry in public, and having these shrieking headlines in the media that you've put out there to tear strips out of your family. Because the press obviously found out about Prince Charles's mistress, his maîtresse en titre, for decades was Camilla Parker Bowles, to whom he's now married. And then Princess Diana took a number of lovers, James Hewitt, Nusrat Khan, is that his name? The heart surgeon, Will Carling, and possibly others. So the family name was dragged through the mud on a daily basis. It was sordid. I mean, I don't mind people committing adultery. I'm not judgmental about that. But as a child, it would be a little bit difficult for people to know about it and say, your mum's doing blah, blah, blah. It says in the newspaper. So that cannot have been easy to cope with. I'm not sure how effective they shielded him from it at Ludgrove. As far as I know, when I was at Eton Prince William, I don't remember anybody mocking him about it. There were things like Squidgy Gate, about his mother's goo-goo talk on the phone to her paramour. That was hacked into by a newspaper, and the whole transcript was published. Imagine hearing about your mother's pillow talk. Or Prince Charles on the phone to Camilla Parker Bowles, fantasizing about being her tampon. How did this guy ever show his face in public again? I don't know how he mustered up the courage to do that, but he's a man of immense composure, despite his many and severe faults. So the royal family, they strive to bear themselves with dignity, don't always succeed, as you may notice. But Harry's clearly got no decorum whatsoever. And remember, his grandmother's supposed to be the fountain of honour, and other members of the royal family have been many fountains of honour. So it's disgraceful the way that he trash talks his family incessantly. He's talking about, that's why he's bringing his child up, Archie, in the United States, and this little girl's about to be born, wanting to break that cycle of anguish and pain. So he never seemed to think he had a bad childhood until a couple of years ago. Look at his upbringing. He had everything a child could want. He lived in a palace, for goodness sake. They had several homes. He went on all sorts of luxurious foreign holidays in terms of toys and pony lessons and skiing holidays, everything like that. And outstanding education, as he said. But it reminds me, Edith Sitwell said, in England, education produces no effect whatsoever. And His Royal Highness is living proof of that, having been to the world's most renowned school, and yet he's a complete dimwit, constantly embarrassing himself. He shouldn't have been allowed into Eton. I remember reading the newspaper headline, this is in the mid-90s, that Eton won't give Harry a sporting chance, suggesting that despite his reasonable success at sport, they wouldn't admit him on the basis of his very poor grades. Nevertheless, Eton broke its own rules and admitted him anyway. Talk about privilege. He got something he shouldn't have got. Boys with better grades than him were rejected to give him a place just because he was a prince. Anyway, unfair. Then he went to Eton, and he was in the combined cadet force. This is an army training you can do like one afternoon a week. Obviously, it's 10 times easier than the real army. I was never a soldier for a single day. Couldn't cope with it. He was in that. And the best cadet in the CCF is given the Sword of Honour. And guess what? He was given the Sword of Honour out of all 100 or so boys in it. And actually, his brother Prince William was also given the Sword of Honour. Now, fancy that. What are the chances that two brothers get it? Pretty slender. Could he be the best cadet? Possibly. However, I doubt it, because look, he didn't perform that strongly in the army, didn't get promoted. And then getting dreadful A-levels, art, got a B grade, okay, but that's because the teacher cheated for him. We know this because his art teacher recorded him saying this without his knowledge, and later when there was some sort of court case at the school for unfair dismissal, she brought that up in court. So she might well have been banned from teaching for recording a pupil saying something without the pupil's knowledge or permission, and it was just to sort of get blackmail material. So why was this A-level not disqualified? Because if you're caught cheating in one subject, you're usually disqualified from all subjects, and then a D grade in technology or something. So you have to take 3 subjects for A-levels, not 2, and those would have been the worst grades at Eton that year by quite some way. Anyway, so then he went on to the Sandhurst, as the Royal Military Academy, where people trained to be soldiers. By the way, to be a British Army officer, you don't have to be particularly clever. It's not like the United States where they do a degree. Some of them are brainy, many of them are not. And it's a 1-year course, not like a 4-year course at West Point. Anyway, he passed out from there, and he was over 1.5 years from leaving school to actually going there. Despite his drug abuse, they let him in anyway. So there he was, he filmed himself saying the word Packy, saying our Packy friend. Now, okay, this badinage, it might not have been with malice, but here he is, being such a wokester, being so judgmental, so PC, so holier than thou. So some people said he should have been banned from the army, the swastika armband. Okay, I mean, I think at a party you've got a right to make a prat out of yourself, and people should be forgiven for things they do in their early 20s, for these foolish things. I mean, I'm not judgmental about these things, but he is. So you can't be the high priest of political correctness if you have put a foot wrong more than a few times. So going to Las Vegas and exposing his penis to those young women, is that a bit of a Me Too moment? Why was he not charged with a felony there? He's a sex offender, right? How come he gets a free pass? Why does Meghan get away with that? Because if you ask a lady on a date, you're a pervert. If you say that she's good looking, that's sexual harassment. But him showing his penis to these girls, that's absolutely fine. Never a word to be breathed about it against him. So is one law for the royals and another law for everybody else. Because if you break the ultra-feminist code as a man, that's it. There is no forgiveness. You're cast out of darkness. You could never, ever have a career in entertainment, in politics, anything like that, which I think is a ludicrously high moral standard. I mean, there is an immense difference between the sort of like rape at one end of the scale and saying somebody looks good on the other end of the scale, and they're not the same thing. They're not the same ballpark. But anyway, coming back to these two PC bigots, how spiteful they are. What else? Yeah, and they used to assault the press, beat up photographers for doing their job. Talk about violence. He's a thug. He doesn't do that anymore, but actually seemed to be happier when he was doing that, fighting with his fists, rather than putting out all this poison against his family. He assaults the press in a more insidious manner. And as I say, his ethics are not unassailable. His logic, as saying, I want privacy, so I'm going on Oprah. Only someone like Harry could be imbecilic enough to think that that was logical. So the irrationality of it really is staggering. So anyway, he said the family didn't talk about the death of his mother. They got the old-fashioned approach. The pre-Freudian way was to just bury her in every sense. I mean, okay, you could have some portrait of her or something like that, but we're not going to relive the trauma. We move forward, right? We look to the future. Life has to go on. It reminds me of the Johnny Mercer lyric saying, accentuate the positive, negate the negative, don't mess with Mr. In Between. If you want to be down the dumps, if you want to ruminate on these things, then you can do so. But so Prince Harry is now becoming an accomplished tragedian. Otherwise, just try to be happy, all right? You could think about you're going to die all the time, which is true, and you could immiserate yourself, but more sensible not to. Anyway, so complaining that the royal family were not talking about the dear departed enough. Well, they had the stiff upper lip. They tried to be undemonstrative, rightly or wrongly. That's their way. The different ways of coping with grief. I'm not saying it's the wrong way. That his way to go over it doesn't seem to work to me. But anyway, his family did what they could. They did their best. Maybe incompetent best, but they're not malicious. He's too hard on them. Okay, nobody's perfect. And I've got news for Harry. He's not perfect either. You've got to forgive your parents for their imperfections and ask them to forgive you. You know what? You're not the perfect son. Always slagging off his family in public. So, my goodness. Anyway, so the royal family, if they're going to be in command of others, they must first be in command of themselves. It's like in any leadership position. So they come across as a bit steely and cold. They certainly used to in a previous generation. And his mother was one of the more outgoing, was one of the more demonstrative with her emotions. And she was the breath of fresh air. The rest were rather starchy, perhaps Victorian. Then maybe not as well bone corseted as Harry would have us believe. Anyway, he's always savaging his relatives, lacerating his father, and I think it's vicious. He's so vituperative against him, so vindictive. Family, they recently had to mourn Prince Philip, so that brought them together, a bit of family solidarity. They were united in grief, but his grandfather's not long cold before Prince Harry takes to the airwaves to fire a fusillade against his royal family, the royal family, yet more broadsides against his blood family about how they're no good and they're unfair and blah, 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 and the whole system is racist and stuff. So the telling thing is, as Harry was well adjusted before he met Meghan Markle, you know, what changed since he met her, was it 4 or 5 years ago? He used to be balanced. He was a chirpy, chipper, cheeky chappy. He was adored by the public, lionised by the British press. He was gregarious. He was a garrulous sort, so upbeat, effervescent, always sanguine, energetic. And look at him now, melancholic. Not so quite so much intrapunitive, but he does talk about past mistakes, like his drug addiction. But he's snarling, he's hyper-aggressive. Beforehand, he would punch photographers, but now he attacks the press in a different way, whilst fairly skillfully exploiting certain sections of the media which are willing to be suborned by him as just to be publicists for the Meghan and Harry brand, for the cult of victimhood, oh woe is me. And I know he's symptomatic of a broader societal malaise. Really, you actually don't have that much to feel sorry for yourself about. Okay, your life's absolutely perfect, but my God, you are living other people's dream. I mean that, literally. There are people who dream of living in a palace in California, and you've got it. You've got tens of millions of dollars in the bank. People dream about that. I dream about cash machines just giving out money for free, and you've got that, you know. He's young, he's healthy, he's good looking, he's got a wife who loves him, or loves his status more like. He's got a healthy child, another one on the way. It could be a lot worse. So why can't you count your blessings? But oh no, he's got to feel sorry for himself and try and find what's wrong in his life. If you want to find something to bitch about, well, you will always find it about it. So what a whinge bag. He's always moaning how tedious it is. So he's so lugubrious despite his extraordinary good fortune. Then he revealingly said that the army was the happiest time in his life, his 10 years in the British Army. But many soldiers find it difficult to adjust to civilian life, especially after something like Afghanistan. So, I mean, perhaps he's one of them. But, I mean, I think it's really that Meghan has screwed him up. He seemed to be happy enough before she came along, before she brainwashed him into believing he was unhappy, ruined things. So there we are. I mean, it's quite wearisome. I think they will always retain a hardcore of wokester fanatics. I would suspect that the general public is getting fed up of this. They've laboured their point. Isn't it tedious? But, you know, they are consequential. They're role models for tens of millions of people around the globe. Some people look to them for leadership, and think of the stochastics of this, of Meghan saying, oh, I almost committed suicide over whatever. So some impressionable young teenagers will see that and idolise her. I want to be like her. I'm going to say the same. I might actually do the same, go a step further, actually do it to myself. So it's highly irresponsible when you have such a place in the media to say these kind of things. I mean, even if they're true, it's completely unhelpful. But yet they're going to be applauded for their valour in speaking out and taking on the system and advocating for mental health while doing everything they can to wreck the mental health of the relatives. So these two are just appalling. They're noisome. Anyway, as I say, I wish both of them would shut their laughing gear. However, they shan't, because they're going to sing for their supper. That's the way that these two poor little rich kids are going to make their living, raking in tens of millions of dollars by whining about how incredibly unfortunate they are, how they're the world's biggest victims. So please donate to me. I'm the world's biggest victim. On PayPal, you'll find me there at georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Callahan spelled Callaghan. Those are all lowercase letters. Toodaloo.